Yeah, that's probably. Hello, my potential and possible viewers. I'm going to talk today mainly about Greece and Russia and the implications of that relationship for the Eastern Mediterranean, among other things. Britain will come into the picture rather a lot, and so will America. Let me start off at an apparent tangent, a little thought for the day, if you like. And I wrote this down today. In Greece, the more honest you are, the poorer you are. That means there must be a lot of honest people in Greece. Well, on that interesting note, let's look at Britain, Greece, and Russia. And we'll end up with an attempt to prognosticate, which I suppose is vaguely akin to trying to foresee the future, if that's possible. Now, what a lot of people don't know is that Greece owes its very independence more to Russia than any other country. In fact, it was despite Britain that Greece got its independence. Despite Britain. Now, a long time before that, a long time ago, when Greece was under the Turkic Ottoman occupation, relations with the Greek-speaking world and the Russian world were very, very strong indeed. First, let's remember that the Greek Macedonian brothers, Kyrillos and Methodius, gave, if you like, the religion to the Russians and developed their alphabet into what is now called the Cyrillic script. So there already is a historical and religious connection between those two countries. Now, as the Ottomans expanded and Greece got captured, if you like, by the Ottomans, Russia was also expanding. And whenever there was a war between the Russians and the Ottomans, of course, the Russians always won. But later on, Britain began to get very worried about this. Let's not remember also that before Greek independence, there was a Greek officers' school in Moscow. Let's not forget that Catherine the Great had sent the Orlov brothers to try to free Greece from the Ottomans. But at that time, the Greeks tended to be perhaps a little lazy, and not as much support was gained as was thought. But then the British got worried. Indeed, at the end of the 19th century, 1791, the British Prime Minister denounced Russian plans to dismember Anatolia. So the British were already getting worried. Now, as the French Revolution got underway, of course, and as Napoleonic France emerged from that, Greece got an enormous fillip boost, and people like Rigas, etc., and they really wanted their independence. This, I suppose, went hand in hand with what people tend to describe as nationalism, but it was much more than nationalism in Greece. It was a genuine feeling to throw off the chains of a very horrible occupation, which is essentially what it was. So Britain was very worried because of Russian influence in Greece. Britain, and also the rather awful Austrian dictator Metternich, wanted Greece to remain under the Ottomans for their own selfish geopolitical motives. So what happened was that an Anglo-Russian protocol was signed in 1826, after the outbreak of the Greek Revolution. And it was agreed that Britain would mediate to make Greece an autonomous vassal, not independent, of the Ottoman Empire. But the clever Russians put in a clause saying that if this could not be achieved, that the two powers could intervene jointly or separately. So the Russians intervened. And we know the final result. Greece gained a certain independence. However, when the pro-Russian Kapodistrias was killed, Greece became a sort of playground of big powers. It may shock you to know that in 1841, the British minister to Greece actually, which is the same as an ambassador, actually said that Greece could either be English or Russian, and since she could not be Russian, she must be English. This was imperialism in its heyday and was quite awful. And then we have, of course, the Crimean War, when Britain and its French poodles at the time rushed off to the Crimea to stop the Russians from reaching Constantinople. They blockaded Piraeus, not very nice to the Greeks, because they didn't want the Greeks to help the Russians. And then, of course, we have 1877, 1878, the Great Eastern Crisis, when again Britain showed its love of the Ottoman Empire and intervened, and at the same time obtained Cyprus from the Ottoman Empire. Now, this whole story goes on, because if we jump a bit now, because we haven't got very long, I don't want to start boring you, but then we come up to the First World War. We know the terrible story. We know that Venizelos went much too far into Anatolia than he should have. He was overambitious. I have documents from the British Foreign Office showing that they were very angry with him for not towing the line he should have towed and breaking out of the agreed boundaries. So, of course, even the Russians got angry, very sadly, because the Greek Prime Minister at the time was actually, at the end of the First World War, was actually fighting against the Bolsheviks on the instructions of the British. So, of course, the Bolsheviks helped Ataturk. And because even then Greece wasn't independent, because they just did what Britain wanted, you see. So that was a low point, of course, in Greek-British relations, in Greek-Russian relations. However, by the time we get up to the Second World War, we have the Greeks again trying to throw off the Germans, having defeated the Italians. Now, that was a tougher thing. But at the end of that war, Britain changed sides, moving from the Greek resistance, the main Greek resistance, which was left-wing oriented, which it had supported, against them. Churchill supported a Greek king, which the Greeks generally didn't want. And this was one of the ingredients of the dreadful Greek Civil War. It was nevertheless Greek killing Greek, but the polarization of left and right, the right wing being those who had collaborated to some extent with the Germans, and the left wing being led by this time by communists, there was a terrible civil war. We know all that. And we know then that in 1947, Britain handed Greece over to the United States, having brought the United States, therefore, into the Balkans by doing that. And Greece still hasn't fully recovered from this dreadful Manichaean loathing of some sectors of anything to do with Russia, which even today they associated with communism. So it's the whole debate today is very low level, lacking in knowledge. So let's jump further ahead and just look at what's going on now. I put it to you that Greece's least bad friend today is Russia. Now, look what's happened with Russia. The Soviet Union collapses. It disbands the Warsaw Pact. What does NATO do? It expands. It tickles the bear. It angers the bear. It tries to start controlling its economy under the rather weak Yeltsin. Luckily for Russia, Putin comes back, and in 1998 Russia defaulted on its loans, something that Greece isn't allowed to do unless it's led by the creditors. And Russia is now in a very strong position. Russia has always tried to support the Greeks when it can. However, under our little Jeffrey Papandreou, Greece has really annoyed the Russians, who at the moment don't trust the Greeks. And what's that about? That's about the Burgos-Alexandroupolis pipeline. George didn't support the Russians because George was instructed not to. So now we come to a situation where Greece is literally under occupation, where its best potential friend is Russia. Now, does not Russia have better rights, more rights, in its own back garden than America has? After all, America's back garden is South America, and we know the history of that. It's terrible. But Russia's back garden is the Eastern Mediterranean, and Britain and the US have been trying for a very long time to impose themselves in the Eastern Mediterranean through Gibraltar and through Cyprus, of course. So, looked at realistically, Greece now needs Russia more than it's ever needed it before. However, in Greece, there are not enough real hombres, men or even women of principle, who are able to get up and say to the Russians, look, we're sorry about the pipeline thing, we'll help you more on that. Also, we're more than happy to buy more of your own military hardware instead of being forced to buy French and German and American, and we'd be very happy if you end up controlling the arms market, the Greek-Turkish arms market, because that'll be cheaper, and then you may mediate a solution to the Greek-Turkish problem, because it seems to us quite clear that it is in NATO's interest to keep the problem boiling, because the shareholders sell and sell and sell and sell. And let's not remember that apart from Eisenhower in 1961 talking about the dangers of the military-industrial complex, we have our wonderful Einstein well before him saying that one of the chief evils in the world was the arms industry. And so I think I should begin to come to an end. Please understand that this has been very off the cuff, spontaneous, merely food for thought, and may well be followed up with an even more reasoned and more organized talk. I merely wanted to provoke some thinking about Greek diplomacy and how it should relate to those countries which would be more of a friend than other people have been. So on that note, I'm simply going to say goodbye. I'm sorry if I've sounded rather serious today, but I wish you a good week, and in case we don't meet again before Christmas, a happy Christ Mass. God bless. Bye-bye.